All right, everybody, welcome to the BullDawg World Order, but this ain't about me. Go take it away, guys.
All right, what's going on, guys? Long time no speak. Special spring edition today. For those that haven't tuned into the show before, I'm Magnum, and my co-host here, Uncle Lou. And a lot of you guys have heard of him already because of his hype video that made it to 247sports.com. Y'all should go check it out. Uncle Lou, when you first got told that your video made it to that website, I know we were both subscribed to that. When you found out your video actually made it, what was your first reaction?
Well, I'm not going to lie. I was excited, and I know, a lot of people are going to say, oh, that's no big deal. Who cares? It's just a video on a stupid sports blog or whatever. But when you're on YouTube like we are, and you have 200, 300, 400, 1,000 subscribers, whatever you have, you're not, it's not like you have a nationwide audience. We do it because we enjoy it. We've talked about this before, Magnum, but I'm 36 years old. I've been trash talking for 34 years. So the way I figured is if I'm going to be doing it, why not do it on YouTube? I'm not under any delusions to think that I'm sort of some kind of YouTube star or anything like that. But when you take the time to make these videos, especially videos that have to be edited or highlight clips have to be put together and background music added and things like that, I mean, these things are time-consuming. So for anybody, any website, especially one as big as 24/7, to notice my video, to appreciate it enough to link it to their homepage, share it on their Twitter, on their Facebook page, everything like that, it is exciting. It makes me feel good. I'm not going to apologize for that. I've already caught, a little bit of shit from a few people, telling me, oh, it's no big deal, whatever. Well, to me, it's a big deal.
Those are what we call haters.
Yeah. I mean, is it going to change my life? No. But it feels good to be appreciated in anything that you do. So I was excited that they put it on there, and, it made me feel good. And, I called my dad, and when I found out and told him, and he went to the website, and he was like, wow, there it is, and I shared the 24/7 post on my Facebook page so all my friends and family could see it and stuff like that. So, is it earth-shattering? No. Are most people going to care that I had a video posted on 24/7's page? No. But to me, it was exciting. It made me feel appreciated, and, it was a big deal to me.
Yeah, I think any real Georgia fan, once they watch that video, if that don't get them hyped for this season, I don't know what will. And, speaking of fans, if anybody out there from the Facebook group, Get the Picture, is listening, I want to say appreciate all your support that you've given me since I've been in the group. You guys have been awesome. Ray, it's been a while since we've done the show. So if you could give out the number real quick, just in case if anybody wants to call in, that would be great.
Sure, no problem. 1-855-403-9071, and I'll also post it on the link.
All right. So anytime you guys want to call in with a question for myself or Uncle Lou or a comment, feel free. But without further ado, let's jump in. A lot of articles have been coming out about spring ball. One of the first things that jumps out at me is the quarterback battle. What have you heard, Uncle Lou, and who do you think may have the edge as of right now to start at quarterback?
Well, of course, this is what every Georgia fan wants to know. Every spring you're going to have these position battles going on at different positions and things like that. This is sort of a unique situation this year. We have a new offensive coordinator, so the scheme is changing at least a little bit. Same basic overall philosophy, but, of course, different terminology. Playbooks will be different, things like that. And we really don't return a quarterback with any experience to speak of. Bryce Ramsey, he did okay in some mop-up work last year, and, of course, he filled in when Hudson Mason went down. But we've got three guys there, Bryce Ramsey, Jacob Park, and Fatan Bauta fighting for the starting position. I'm hearing good things about all three of them. It's going to be interesting to see how it goes. of course, like it always does, it's going to come down in the end to talent and the coach's comfort level as far as who they're going to choose to be the starter. I think a lot of it is going to have to do with which one can catch on to the play calls and the audibles and the checks and the switches at the line and the getting the linemen in the right blocking schemes and the backs lined up right and all that kind of stuff. I would have to give the edge right now to Bryce Ramsey just because he's the only proven commodity that we have at that position. He's the only one with any game experience, and this early into spring ball, I'd have to put him at number 1. I would put Park at number 2, and Boucher at number 3. I really expect it to come down to Bryce Ramsey and Jacob Park. It's hard to say right now who's going to get to start game 1, but I guess right now I would lean towards Ramsey. I'm sort of hoping that one of the 3, really either Ramsey or Park, really separates themselves from the other. I don't want an Alabama situation from last year, and that's not to single Alabama out. It happens every year at several, a dozen or more schools. But you want one quarterback to stand out above the rest. To me, if your quarterback competition is so close that it's basically a flip of a coin of who you're starting, then you really don't have a starter in my mind. There's an old expression, if you have 2 starting quarterbacks, then you don't have any starting quarterbacks. Somebody is better than somebody else. And so I'm looking to find out who that person is, who's going to step up, who's going to take the lead, who's going to take charge. All 3 have been rotating, practicing with the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, so they're all getting equal time and equal opportunity on the field to show what they have. So obviously what you don't know is who's putting in the most work behind the scenes with playbook study and film study and in the weight room and staying after practice to work on timing with receivers and things like that. These are things there's just no way to know. But it's definitely the most talked about position battle in Athens this spring for sure. Anytime you have a quarterback competition, that's gonna, that's gonna be where your headline is. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. But yeah, right now I would go Ramsey, Park, Falta.
Well, I definitely agree with you as far as the 2 quarterback system. And one reason I've never agreed with that because when you have 2 quarterbacks rotating in and out, you kind of keep one from getting in a rhythm. It's really hard to get going if you're constantly, rotating in and out. You're not on the field a lot. I mean, that can really hurt a quarterback. It can help, but it can also hurt. And from everything I've read, I agree with you on Boucher being the number 3, but I would actually lean more towards Jacob Park right now. I'm actually hearing that he's actually more mobile than Bryce Ramsey. Ramsey does have a heck of an arm. We saw that, a little bit last year. But the one thing that concerns me about Ramsey was some of his decision-making. I mean, we saw some of those passes, and like you said, most of his passes was in mop-up duty, and even in mop-up duty, he made some throws that just left you, scratching your head. I mean, he's definitely got a better arm than Hudson Mason. I will agree with that, but everything I'm reading right now, I think the edge goes to Park. But at the same time, I definitely think both quarterbacks are going to get some playing time this year. One's going to be named a starter game 1, but at the same time, I can, week 2, week 3, I can see Mark Richt, whether it be Ramsey or Park starting. I can see Richt putting one or the other in there a few times during the game to see how he does. Boucher, to me, I think he's going to be brought in maybe on some running situations. I mean, of course, I think everybody knows that he's often been referred to as Baby Tebow. He's probably the best runner we have at quarterback. So I can see him coming in on some maybe option packages or something like that. But for the number 1 for me right now, I would go more towards Jacob Park. That's just my opinion. Everybody has their opinion, but for me, Jacob Park is my number 1 right now.
And one thing to keep in mind too, you want a starter named for game one. Obviously, you want to go into the season knowing who the guy is, so everybody can get comfortable with him and things like that. But one advantage that UGA does have in the scheduling this year, our first two games are at home against Louisiana Monroe, and then on the road at Vanderbilt. So if for some reason nobody's able to separate themselves during spring and fall camp, you really have basically two scrimmage games to start the season with Louisiana Monroe and Vanderbilt before we host South Carolina at home. But by that third game, we need to have the starter. Whoever just called in needs to be cut off, Ray.
Wait. Who do we have a caller in?
Yes, you do have a caller, and you just got rid of him.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything, but it sounded like they were driving down the road with the window down.
Well, whoever just tried to call in, hold on just a second. Whoever just tried to call in, call back, and once Uncle Lou gets done saying what he has to say, we'll get you on. But when you call back in, just mute your mic until Uncle Lou gets done.
Yeah, but the first two games, Louisiana Monroe and then at Vanderbilt, that's basically two scrimmage games to start off the year. You know, forever we've started, our first game of the year has been, Clemson, and then we right into Carolina, things like that. But we have a couple of cupcakes to start the year off with Louisiana Monroe and at Vanderbilt. So if for some reason we can't get a quarterback to separate from the field, a clear-cut starter, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we run into a situation where we say, okay, Ramsey's going to start against Louisiana Monroe, Jacob Park's going to play the second half, and then in Vanderbilt we flip-flop it. Jacob Park plays the first half, Bryce Ramsey plays the second half, something like that. Obviously, I'd rather it be one clear-cut starter from the get-go, but at least we have this two-game cushion to start the season off where if we are in an Alabama-type situation, we have a couple of cupcakes to try to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree with you. First couple games, Monroe and Vanderbilt, I think that's more than enough time to really figure out who your number one quarterback is going to be. And those are two games where I think that Georgia should have those games well in hand kind of early on. So I think Rick will be able to actually rotate the quarterbacks in to get them some meaningful playing time. And at week 3 we got South Carolina, so we definitely need to know what we have come week 3 when we play South Carolina. We do have them at home, but the last several years, everybody knows that game has been really close, and they've beaten us several times over the last several years. So we really need to have that solidified starter by the time South Carolina rolls around.
Yeah. So offensively, that's what everyone's talking about: the quarterback battle. Who's going to take the lead? Who's going to get the start? Who's going to rise above the other two? Defensively, to me, there's not really as many question marks on the defensive side of the ball as there is on offense. Yeah, we lost some key pieces, particularly at inside linebacker with Ramik Wilson and Amarlo Herrera. But we returned 3 out of 4 starters in the secondary, plus another 2 or 3 guys that got a lot of playing time. We rotated a lot of freshmen and sophomores in and out last year. I'm not too concerned about the defensive secondary. Of course, we had the number 1 pass defense in the SEC last year. A lot of that can be attributed to our front 7 as easily as it could be contributed to the defensive backs. But at safety, we've got Mauger coming back and Dominic Sanders. Dominic Sanders is an NFL player. I think he led the team in interceptions last year. Very athletic.
Yeah, we saw him come on strong in the Louisville game. I think he had 2 picks in that game and almost had a third one. He looked really good.
Yeah, at cornerback, we return Bowman and Aaron Davis, and we get Shadow Fenting back, who I think was hurt for a lot of last year. But he's pretty good too. And of course, outside linebacker, everybody talks about how spoiled UGA's been over the last few years at running back, and we still are. Outside linebacker, we have 3 people that could play in the NFL right now competing for 2 outside linebacker spots. Of course, Leonard Floyd and Jonathan Jenkins, or Jordan Jenkins, whichever one, I can't remember now. And the true sophomore, Lorenzo Carter. We have to find a way to get all 3 of these guys on the field at the same time. Any one of these 3 guys can change a game on any given play. Leonard Floyd is one of the most athletic and quickest outside linebackers in the SEC. Jenkins is just a beast, perfect size, a headhunter, always knows where the ball is. And Lorenzo Carter showed flashes of being a superstar last year as a true freshman. Of course, he had a hard time getting on the field last year just because of the depth that we had at the position. But I'm really looking for Jeremy Pruitt to figure out some ways to get all three of these guys on the field. And he's going to have to get creative. Now, one thing, Jordan, the Jenkins, because of his size, and they did this some last year, they can drop Jenkins down to defensive end in certain situations. When you know it's going to be third and long passing situations, and you can get Jenkins down there at defensive end, Lorenzo Carter rushing from one side, Leonard Floyd rushing from the other. There's not an offense in the SEC or an offense in America that's going to be able to block all three of those guys on the same play. It's just not going to happen. Quarterbacks are going to have to do, a 2 and 3 step drop, quick releases, slant passes, screens, things like that. Those three guys pinning their ears back and coming for the quarterback just spells disaster for any offensive team.
Yeah, and if we can get all three of those guys on the same field at the same time, and it may not happen a whole lot, but I mean, if we can come up with packages to get all three of them on the field at the same time, maybe one third of the game or whatnot. I mean, that's still going to be tough to stop because, like you said, our front seven definitely contributed to the number one pass defense we had in the SEC last year. Our defensive backs are boy, it's like night and day. You look at a couple of years ago where we were like dead last, and then all of a sudden last year, Pruitt takes, Grantham's guys and turns them into the best, pass defense in the SEC. I mean, that was just an amazing turnaround.
Amazing.
The
turnaround was unreal.
Yeah, I don't think any UGA fan expected us to have the number one pass defense. I mean, our strength going into the season, everybody was, we're talking about our front seven. Well, the strength last season was actually the secondary. I mean, the number one pass defense, it was like our run defense that struggled a lot. But between Lorenzo Carter and Leonard Floyd and Jordan Jenkins, I mean, that's like you said, that's going to be damn near unstoppable. And you were talking about Ramik Wilson and Amaro Herrera. I mean, don't get me wrong. They were good linebackers and they contributed a lot. But those are guys that can be replaced. It's not. I wouldn't call them elite. Those are guys that I think that can be replaced. And if I remember correctly, didn't Ramik Wilson actually start out the season like number 2 on the depth chart or something like that? He didn't even start.
Yeah, he had a problem. He had a problem with Jeremy Pruitt. I don't know if he wasn't catching on or he.
Okay, hold on just a second, Uncle Lou. Let's get this caller in real quick. Go ahead, caller. Hello?
Caller, you're on the air.
All right, I guess you could cut him off. Hey, he's not talking.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on. All I hear is like wind or background noise or something. But back to the inside linebackers, Ramik Wilson really took a step back last year from his numbers and his performance from the year before. And we're losing our 2 starters in Ramik Wilson and Amarlo Herrera, but it's not like we're putting people in there who've never played before. I mean, Tim Kimbrough was a hell of a player last year. I look for him to fill in very nicely this year. I don't think we'll have little to no drop off at the inside linebacker position this year. Defensive tackle is another position where we lose a couple of starters, but again, that's a position where we rotated so many people in and out that it was really a flip of the coin of who was starting and who was coming in on the rotation and things like that. Going into spring ball, I guess it's probably Sterling Bailey and Chris Mays, your 2 starting defensive tackles. And we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about this guy because he's not even on campus yet, but everybody knows the number 1 player in the nation, Trent Thompson, signed with UGA. He's a defensive tackle. I'd be shocked if he's not starting on day 1 at defensive tackle, so I feel comfortable there. And we actually have another freshman that did early enroll, Jonathan Ledbetter. This guy's a skyscraper. He's 6'4", 265 pounds. and runs like a linebacker. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if game one we had 2 freshman defensive tackles starting. But at the very least, they're going to get a lot of playing time rotating behind those other 2 guys, Bailey and Mays. So defensive tackle, I'm not concerned. Defensive backs, I'm not concerned. Inside line, if I had to pick one area of the defense right now where I said that's the concern, I guess it would be inside linebacker. But my level of concern is like a 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. I really think we're going to have one of the best defenses in the SEC this year.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, just look at what Pruitt did with Grantham's guys last year, and now he's had a year to get these guys accustomed to his system, and now he's got some of his recruits in there. No question in my mind that we're going to get better. And you were talking about Jonathan Ledbetter. At one time, he was actually committed to Alabama. He actually decommitted from Alabama to come to UGA. So that ought to tell you a lot right there. I mean, if Alabama is going after guys, obviously they've got to be pretty good. So, yeah, I really don't have...
What it came down to for Jonathan Ledbetter is, did he want to win on October 3rd, or did he want to lose on October 3rd? It was that simple. That simple. Because I mean, the last thing I want to do is get off on a rant here. Never mind. I'm not even going to go there because I'll take up the show talking about those bubble gumps from Greenbow, Alabama down there. But October 3rd, it's going down in Athens. Yep, let's move on because the train's going to go off the tracks here.
All right. Well, let's talk about somebody else we've been hearing a lot about. I know a lot of Georgia fans have probably forgotten about him, but guess who's back? Healthier than ever and is looking like he did, his freshman season. Keith the Truth Marshall. What I'm hearing is he's looking excellent. His injury is not holding him back. He's going full speed. I'm hearing that he's looking just as good, if not better, than his 2012 form. Hopefully, I guess it has yet to be seen, but hopefully he can remain healthy. And if he can stay healthy, the combo between Chubb, Michelle, and Marshall, I think anybody with a logical football mind will tell you that will be the best backfield in the country, hands down.
If we learned anything last year as UGA fans, well, we learned don't sign autographs. That was number one. But if we learned anything else as UGA fans last year, it's that you can never have enough reliable running backs. Keith Marshall injured. Sony Michel injured. Todd Gurley injured. Chubb played a lot of the games banged up because he was the last man standing, and he did a hell of a job. So it is great news that Keith Marshall appears to be back to 100%, both physically and I think even more importantly, mentally. A knee injury like that is very hard to overcome mentally. A doctor can look at you and tell you you're healed, you're fine, you can run, you can cut. But if you don't believe it, if you're scared to plant that leg in the ground and change directions and things like that, it's going to show on the field. And I think that was a lot of the issue with Keith Marshall last year, is that he didn't trust the leg. But like you said, everything you read, everything you hear, nothing but positive about Keith Marshall, which is great news for the Dogs and for Dog Nation. We're all banking and counting on Nick Chubb. I'm sure he's going to be at the top or near the top of every Heisman list that comes out preseason, and that's great. But the chances are that he will not start every game. That's just the odds of it for a running back nowadays.
Oh no! I don't
something will come up.
I don't expect Keith to start. That job.
No. I'm talking about Chubb. I'm talking about Chubb. Something will happen. A sprained ankle, a bruised knee. Even if it's something minor. So I'm not going to apologize for having a Keith Marshall, a Sony Michel, a Nick Chubb, a Brendan Douglas. You need 2 or 3 or 4 running backs. I mean, we found that out the hard way last year. You know, Gurley goes down, Michelle goes down, Keith Marshall goes down. So it's great news that Keith Marshall's back to 100% because, you know, he's going to play. Whether Chubb's healthy or not, we all know Marshall's going to get his playing time. But God forbid something should happen to Chubb. It's nice to know we've got a Keith Marshall to rely on that can step in, start if he needs to, take 20, 25 carries a game. You need to have that at the running back position in the SEC in particular.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% there. I mean, injuries happen. It's part of the game. But just think about this for a moment. We saw it last year several times where they had Gurley and Chubb on the field at the same time. Now, imagine, you know, and I hope if I'm thinking of this, I'm hoping, you know, Coach Schottenheimer's thinking of something along this line. You know, having Chubb and Keith Marshall in the backfield together, and putting Sonny Michel at receiver alongside of Malcolm Mitchell and Isaiah McKenzie.
Oh my God! You talk about a video game.
Who are you going to focus on?
Yeah. That's a video game offense, right? I mean, everybody you just named has a speed rating of 97 or higher on Madden. I mean, that would be a nightmare. Now, yeah, McKenzie and Michelle are a little bit undersized, but they're shifty, and that's where an offensive coordinator's job is to come up with ways to get these people the ball. This is something we sort of moaned about a lot last year. Every time Isaiah McKenzie touched the ball, you stood up. I don't care where you were or what you were doing. It was exciting. But we felt like there wasn't enough of it. The offense was too conventional, too conservative, no creativity. And I know that Schottenheimer is sort of cut from that same mold. He's a conservative, sort of play it by the book type of coach, which fits in good with the offense that we have. But I want the ability to have that creativity in key situations, and that's, if I had a knock on Bobo, that would probably be what it was: situational play calling and lack of creativity. I think that's an area that Schottenheimer can improve on.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think we got a caller. So if you hear us, go ahead, caller.
Negative. That caller was the one before. I muted them so they could at least listen to the show, and they hung up.
Okay.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that is one of the things. I know we talked about it several times last season, and I do hope Coach Schottenheimer could actually incorporate these guys into the game more. I mean, if you have all those guys I just named on the field at the same time, you're talking about an offense that could literally be unstoppable all season long. We're talking at least, you know, we averaged like 37 points a game last year. It could at least be 37, maybe even a little more this next season. I mean, of course, that is if everybody stays healthy. Hopefully that's the case. But, man, even though, like you said, Michelle and McKenzie are undersized, I mean, that doesn't really, I guess, how should I say, mean a whole lot, because we saw what happens when these guys touch the ball. It's like all they need is the ball in their hands, and they can, you know, run the entire length of the field in a second. It's like they're a danger to take it to the house every time.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean when I say the video game offense. I mean, they call Isaiah McKenzie a human joystick, and you see why. I mean, he's shifty. You can't grab a hold of him. You know, he's just exciting and fun to watch, whether it's a reverse, a hitch pass, a slant, a punt return, whatever the case may be. He's probably the most exciting player on the field for UJ. You talk about scoring 37 points a game. If we have any pass offense at all last year, how many points do we put up a game? 45?
Woo! Yeah.
You have to think that any pass offense at all last year would have counted for at least an additional 7 points a game, which would have put us at 44, 45 points a game. I don't see any reason why we can't do that this year. And speaking of the pass offense, let's talk a little bit about the receivers that we have coming back this spring. I'll let you start. But with Justin Scott Wesley and Malcolm Mitchell, two guys riddled with injuries that are back and look to lead the receiving corps.
Yeah, the receivers, like you said, Malcolm Mitchell, Justin Scott, Wesley, and Isaiah McKenzie. Those three guys I think are going to be the focal point. And we talked about this earlier. There's a lot of good things that's being said about Justin Scott Wesley. He's lost weight. He's faster. He's stronger. It seems like he's got his head, on right now. I know last year a lot of us Georgia fans were wondering what's going on with him. It's like he started off the year hurt. We knew that, but when he got healthy, we still wasn't seeing him. So a lot of questions about Justin Scott Wesley last year. But everything I'm hearing, now it's he's back to form like he was a couple years ago. Maybe even a little better, and he's going to have to be at that form for our receivers to be effective. I mean, we know about how good Malcolm Mitchell is, but he's had injury issues as well. So if he goes down, Justin Scott Wesley has to be that guy. He has the capabilities to. I mean, we saw him a couple of years ago. I think everybody remembers that play against South Carolina where Murray rolled out and threw like an 80-something yard touchdown pass to him, and you saw the speed he has. He just ran away from the defender. I forget who he ran past, but, I mean, he has speed when he hits that open field. And between him, Mitchell, and McKenzie, I mean, I know I said it before, I mean, hopefully all these guys can stay healthy, and if they get hurt, hopefully it's nothing major. But I think for our receivers to be really effective, I think Justin Scott Wesley is going to be the guy. I really do.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a strong number one. With Malcolm Mitchell, and I love Malcolm Mitchell, but I have to admit here, I have to be honest with myself and with you and the listeners, I'm getting a little, I don't know, not a little tired. Well, I'll just say I'm getting a little impatient with hearing about how good Malcolm Mitchell could be. It seems like he's been at UGA forever. I know he's had a lot of injury problems. I get it. But it's sort of like somebody telling you forever how good of an actor Ben Affleck is. And then you finally see a Ben Affleck movie, but you see Geely. And you're like, what? This guy's no good. That's sort of how I feel about Malcolm Mitchell. I have been reading and hearing and listening to people tell Uncle Lou that Malcolm Mitchell is the most athletic, fastest, can jump the highest, can jump the longest, has the best hands, runs the best routes, can dunk a basketball on a 12-foot goal. I've been hearing all these things forever, and to be honest, I can't think of, there's not one play that sticks out in my mind that he's made. Not one. You mentioned
there's one I can think of.
Carolina.
Well, go back a couple of years to the game we played against Florida where we beat them 17-9. We scored one touchdown in that game, if I remember correctly, and it was a short pass to Malcolm Mitchell, and he actually ran pretty much the entire length of the field for that lone touchdown to seal the deal. But that's the one play that I can recall that it was really a game changer. But you're right. Other than that, it really hasn't been a whole lot.
And I'm hearing the same things about Justin Scott Wesley and Malcolm Mitchell that I'm hearing about Keith Marshall. The only doubt I have is that I've heard these things before. We heard this last year with Justin Scott Wesley. He got hurt 2 years ago in the Tennessee game, and we heard all fall that he was progressing. He was good to go. Then the season started and he didn't play, and there was rumors that he was under a 2-game suspension, and then there was rumors that, no, he was hurt for the first 2 games. So then he had to sit the 3rd and the 4th game because of a marijuana suspension. These were all just rumors. Of course, Coach Rick made the decision last year for the first time that once the season started, he wasn't giving out detailed information on injuries and blah, 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 and things like that. So who really knows? But basically, the season came and went, and Justin Scott Wesley was basically used as a decoy. He caught a few passes, and I know a lot of that probably has to do with Hudson Mason, and we're not going to beat that drum again. He's gone. Good luck to him and whatever he does. He wasn't a Division I quarterback. He didn't have the arm. I get it. So, a lot of my issues with Malcolm Mitchell and Justin Scott Wesley, it's not really fair to look at last year and blame those two when Hudson Mason couldn't throw a 12-yard out. But that being said, particularly with Malcolm Mitchell. And the reason I'm coming down more on Malcolm Mitchell, I think, than Justin Scott Wesley is because Justin Scott Wesley was kind of a surprise that year when he blew up 2 years ago. No one really, he wasn't a big name recruit. No one really knew about him. And then he sort of just burst on the scene in the Carolina game 2 years ago. But with Malcolm Mitchell, we've been hearing about this guy since he was 15 years old. He could have went anywhere in the country out of high school. He chose UGA. He shows up. He's all everything, and nothing. And I get it. He had some legitimate, legitimate injuries.
Who Malcolm Mitchell reminds me of? You all right? Think about this, and you're going to agree with this. I know you are. You take a guess who Malcolm Mitchell reminds me of, and I'm kind of piggybacking off of what you were just talking about. Take a shot who he reminds me of.
I couldn't even guess.
I know you remember Craig Lumpkin, right? Coming out of high school, we heard all this like he was. I mean, people called him the next Herschel Walker. He was supposed to be, all SEC, all world, but that guy had injury issues pretty much his whole career at UGA. He really never took off. And we're seeing the same thing with Malcolm Mitchell. It's almost identical. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good analogy. Craig Lumpkin, number 6.
Yeah, and when he was healthy, you saw, flashes of greatness at times. But the problem was he could never stay in a rhythm, and he would have a lot of injury issues. It's kind of the same thing with Thomas Brown. I mean, Thomas Brown, everybody remembers him from the 2007 season, which was actually a pretty good season. But, he had a lot of injury issues as well. I mean, a lot of our players, they have had so much potential. They could go on to greatness, but the injury issues, I know some may have had, work ethic issues, but we've had so much potential that's really never panned out. And I hope and pray that this year Malcolm Mitchell and Justin Scott Wesley can stay healthy, keep their heads on straight, don't do anything stupid, and blow up, prove everybody wrong. Take the SEC by storm.
I mean, the thing is, we have 4 out of 5 offensive linemen returning from last year, which we had the best offensive line in the SEC last year, particularly in terms of run blocking. I don't think anybody would dispute that. And we did what we did last year, running the ball with 8 and 9 people in the box 90% of the time. Defenses were not concerned at all with us throwing the ball further than 10 yards down the field, so they were able to stack the box. And yet, Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley, it seemed like whoever we put in there was still able to average 7 yards a carry and 150 yards a game with 2 touchdowns. That's great. But how much better could they be if a defense did have to respect the pass, the deep ball? Not even the deep ball, the 15-yard crossing routes that are the bread and butter of most pro-style offenses.
Especially if Hudson could have even... If Hudson could have even, Aaron Murray was a master at this. If Hudson could even decently throw one of those back shoulder fades, it would have, caused the defenses to rethink their strategy. But he couldn't do that. So I'm thinking that Park and Ramsey, both of them, have to be an upgrade over Hudson. There's no question our passing game is going to improve.
Yeah, and for Dirt, we talked about, how important it is for running backs to stay healthy, and you have to have multiple running backs. Well, just from a durability standpoint, I'm sure the running backs would rather be running against 6- and 7-man fronts than they would 8- and 9-man fronts. It's got to get demoralizing after a while when every single time you line up in the backfield, you're looking at 8 guys knowing that you're getting the ball. That could have possibly that could have possibly contributed to a lot of the injuries we had at running back last season. Like you said, they were stacking the box, and our running backs were getting pounded. And granted, like you said, they were still, 150 yards a game, 2 touchdowns, but all those hits, man, you're talking getting hit by 2 or 3 people at a time, and that wears on you. I mean, how many 7- or 8-yard runs did Nick Chubb have last year where he was hit at the line or 2 yards beyond the line and was dragging 2 or 3 defenders for the additional 3, 4, 5 yards? I mean, that wears on you over the course of a season. You've got to be able to make the defense at least respect the possibility of a pass. We don't need an A.J. Green or a Matthew Stafford, but we've got to have a receiver who can run the routes and catch the ball, and a quarterback who can make those throws 60% of the time. One thing you can't say about Hudson Mason, he didn't turn the ball over.
And I know you were dogging, and it wasn't just you, it was a lot of people that was dogging Hudson Mason, but you heard me pretty much all season long. That was the one area that I kind of praised Hudson Mason on, because he only threw 4 interceptions all year. He, for the most part, made good decisions, and I know a lot of people have made the stupid comment, like they put him on the level of Joe Cox and Joe Tereshinski, but that's stupid, because those guys were a turnover waiting to happen. Hudson at least took care of the ball, and he is, I guess you would definitely say, the epitome of a game manager, or whatever term you want to use. So I wouldn't put him as far as the worst quarterback we've had in the last decade or even last 20 years. I'm not even going that far. But it's no question that his arm wasn't there. He wasn't the greatest mobile quarterback either, so he really didn't have a whole lot working for him. So, like I said, whether it be Ramsey or Park, it's an upgrade. And we talked about this a lot. We lost our worst player on offense, and we're getting an upgrade.
Right. I've said that over and over to anybody that'll listen, and I honestly feel that way. And as far as the comparison between Hudson Mason and Tereshinski and Cox, I think as far as ability, physical ability, is probably a fair comparison. I think where Hudson Mason probably had the advantage was up mentally, decision making and things like that. But as far as physical ability, he was no than Cox or Tereshinski. In fact, Cox probably had a better arm than Mason. But like you said, he made way too many poor decisions with the ball.
Yeah,
there's not a doubt in my mind that's why Mason started last year. That's why. Obviously, Bryce Ramsey is more gifted and has more pure quarterback ability than Hudson Mason. You don't have to be a football expert or coach or an analyst to figure that out. You can watch the two of them stand on the field and throw the ball, and you notice it within the first couple of throws. It's not close. Ramsey's miles ahead ability-wise of Mason. But
we talked about this a little bit last year.
What we had. You remember the situation. The coaches knew what we had, and they made the decision to go with Mason.
Well, and remember, we were talking, and like before the season started last year, and even during the season, and I said to you that Mark, he's really loyal to his guys. Hudson stuck around. He thought about transferring at one time, but he stuck with UGA. And me personally, I think he got the starting job simply because he stuck with UGA. And, I'm pretty sure Rick guaranteed him a spot starting once Murray left. That's what I personally think. I think he started simply because he stuck around and he was the senior.
And if that's true, I strongly disagree with that as a practice. I think that's a terrible coaching move. I think that's horrible. This is not pee-wee football. This is big football, and the best person for the job should start. Black, white, left-handed, right-handed, freshman, senior, and Acacia Tereshinski. Doesn't matter where your daddy, both your uncles, your granddaddy went to UGA. None of that should matter. It should be pure ability and who gives your team the best chance to win. So I choose to believe that Coach Rick honestly thought Mason gave him the best chance to win because of decision making. If he only played Mason because he was a senior and some promise he made to him when he was a senior in high school, that's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know about making him a promise in high school, but, like I said, at one time he was going to transfer because he wasn't really getting any playing time. And that's one reason that they redshirted him is because it's like, I'm pretty sure that Rick told him, it's like, okay, we're going to redshirt you. When Aaron Murray leaves, you're the guy. Because, Hudson wanted to play. I mean, I think, like I said, we don't know for a fact, but I think the logical mind, okay, he stuck around because he knew he was going to be that guy when Aaron Murray left. I mean, why would you stick around and you're not sure if you're even going to step on the field?
Right. Yeah, I get it. But luckily that's behind us now. I don't have to worry about that. We've got a sophomore and a redshirt freshman battling it out. I think the odds are very, very high that one of those two gets the starting job. Balta's a junior, has seen very little playing time. I mean, Ramsey started over Balta last year for a reason. I don't see what could change from last year to now that would somehow make Balta better than Ramsey.
Well, no, he's not going to start, but I do think he's probably going to get a little more playing time than what he did last year because, to me, he's one of those typical option quarterbacks. He is a runner. He's kind of, I mean, I almost look at him almost like Tebow. I think Tebow and Balta's strength is running the ball. And Balta actually came in a few times last year, and what did he do? He ran the ball. That's his strong point. So I don't think Balta has any chance as far as starting, but I do see him seeing the field possibly in some option packages.
Yeah.
But as far as, Ramsey and Park, I mean, both of them are going to get, I think both of them are going to get quite a bit of playing time. And whether it be Ramsey starting or Jacob Park starting, there's really not, as of right now, I mean, we can't tell because neither one of them have really played meaningful time yet, I guess you would say. So there can't be a huge drop-off from Ramsey to Park right now. So it's like whether you start Ramsey or Park, more than likely you're going to get the same outcome. That's the way I look at it.
I have seen quotes from players last year, seniors, that said that Jacob Park was the best quarterback, practice team quarterback they had ever seen, that he was the real deal. My thing with Park is I haven't seen Jacob Park do anything other than YouTube highlights in high school. That's it for me. So I think that's probably part of the reason why I lean towards Ramsey, because I can see what I'm getting with Ramsey, which is why I'm really looking forward to the G-Day game. Because I know both of those guys are going to get a ton of playing time with the ones during the G-Day game. And it'll be interesting to see because, I know it's just a G-Day game and it doesn't mean anything and blah, 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 but there'll be 40,000 people there. It'll be the most people that he's ever played in front of before, for sure. It won't even be close. So we'll get a chance to see how he handles a little bit of pressure. And I think I'll be more comfortable, I think, talking about Park after the G-Day game than I am now. It's easy for me to read an article on the internet that tells me how good Jacob Park is, but again, I've never seen him play. So I think we're going to, obviously that's why you have spring practice to figure these things out. The coaches we mentioned it before, the coaches are giving all these guys ample opportunity to play with the ones. And in the G-Day game, we'll get to see some live action football, and we'll get to see what these guys can do.
Well, the one good thing I love about the G-Day game, you can see people that, of course you may have heard about them, but they weren't really highly recruited or talked about. You could see a guy come out and make just an impact, just a splash. Like, whoa, where did this guy come from? And the good thing about the G-Day game, as good as, let's say if Park comes out and he has a great G-Day game, he looks really good. Well, we still got several months before the actual season starts. So more than likely, he's going to actually improve. With the G-Day game, you could actually kind of see where somebody's at that moment, and if they do good, you would expect them to get even better by the time the season rolls around.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's so hard to make a decision, right? I mean, if the coaches can't make a decision right now, then how can Magnum and Uncle Lou? We haven't seen these guys. We're not at practice every day. We have to go off of what we read and things like that. But I still have confidence in Coach Rick. I know every year that goes by, the anti-Rick crowd seems to be getting bigger and louder. I'm still firmly in his corner. I trust him. I think he'll make the best decision for the team. I hate to even bring this up, but the frustrating, well, not really frustrating, but we're going to be having this same conversation this time next year. And we know why that is, but no matter who starts this year, no matter how well they do or how bad they do or what our record is this year, we're going to be having this exact same conversation next spring.
Oh, yeah. We'll probably have this conversation every spring. But let me ask you this. Who is well, first, are you going to go to the G-Day game? I actually plan on going. Do you plan on going?
I'm going to try to go. I've actually never been to the G-Day game before. I have friends that go every year. I know what it's about. And I'm actually thinking about taking Lou Jr. this year. It's if you have kids, it's a great opportunity. I mean, you can get right up, you shake hands with all these guys. If you're willing to stand in line, you can get autographs from these guys, pictures with them. And kids look up to these guys as almost like superheroes. They watch them on TV. We watch them because we want Georgia to win, and we yell for them when they do good, and we cuss at them when they do bad, and But when you're young like that, you look at these guys almost as superheroes. These guys that you watch on TV, every weekend with the big pads on and the uniforms and the helmets and the mascots running around in the big stadium and all that. And I've, Lou Jr. is only 6 years old. I've been trying to wait until he was old enough to enjoy it. And I don't know, it's always hard for me with G-Day game. Living in Augusta, G-Day game is always during Masters Week. And there's so much going on down here during Masters Week that most people in Augusta either leave town for the whole week or they're involved in stuff all during the week associated with the Masters. If you stay in Augusta during Masters Week, you usually get tied up and entangled in Masters Week activities that are going on. Augusta is not a huge town. I think everybody, it's the second biggest city in Georgia, but it's not, it's not Atlanta by any means. But during Masters Week, it's a really big deal here. Wherever you go, you see somebody famous, whether it's a golfer or, movie stars, musicians, politicians, and you name it. It seems like the whole world is here during Masters Week. So if you stay here during Masters Week, it's kind of hard to get out of town because there's just so much going on. But I don't know. I may take him. We'll see. I've heard it's a ton of fun, and I would love to go and watch these two quarterbacks, in person, with my own eyes and get a look at them and see what they can do.
Well, you just kind of answered the question I was going to ask you. Who do you look, as far as everybody that's going to be playing, who do you look forward to watching the most? So you kind of just answered that. But for me, I'm actually very anxious to see Keith Marshall. I've been hearing, of course, we talked about it, hearing all this good, stuff about him. I want to actually see how good this guy is now. I want to see if he can make those cuts with confidence now. I want to see him in action. I want to see the Keith Marshall from 2012 or maybe even a little better. That's who I'm looking forward to seeing the most.
Yeah. Keith Marshall, some of these guys that had the injury bug last year, Keith Marshall, Justin Scott Wesley, Malcolm Mitchell. It's also going to be interesting to see how much they let these guys do because of the injury history that they have. Do they really want to cut them loose on G-Day game? We know Justin Scott Wesley and Malcolm Mitchell are starting on day one if healthy. So the only real benefit I see of playing them in a G-Day game type situation is for chemistry reasons with the quarterback. But it'll be interesting to see how much those guys play versus the 2s and the 3s and things like that. Keith Marshall, I think, will get a good amount of playing time in the G-Day game simply because I don't think they're going to take a lot of chances with Chubb. I don't see any reason at all for Chubb to run the ball more than 5 to 10 times in the G-Day game. I don't see it. You don't need that much chemistry with a quarterback to get a handoff or catch a pitch. The last thing we need is for something catastrophic to happen in the G-Day game to one of our running backs or receivers or something like that. I know they need to play and they need to get used to contact and things like that, but when it comes to certain key guys, I think it's better safe than sorry, especially when you already know what you have. You know what you have with Nick Chubb. There's no reason to take any chances with him in the spring game. So, that's the two things I'm hoping for going forward here through the off season. No injuries, and please stay out of the jail report. Please. Find a hobby.
Yeah, we don't need.
The
last thing we need is for the University of Auburn coming to the Clark County Jail and start their recruiting process. We don't need that shit.
And they will. And let's make this the first season in God knows how long that half of our defense does not get arrested during the off season. That would be, to me, a successful off season.
Hey, you know what? So far, so good, dude. Like, for the, football's been over a couple months now, and we haven't heard anything bad about our players.
No, not one word.
And that's a good thing. You know what they say, no news is good news.
Yeah. Other than a couple of key prospects that we signed on signing day, that's the best news I've heard since football season ended. I haven't heard Georgia football player, blah, 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 arrested on blah, blah, blah. And I really hope that can continue. Now, they've been in school this whole time, so the coaches are able to keep an eye on them. A lot of this stuff typically happens in May and June when they get out of school before they report back for camp in July. So we still have to make it through that May and June period where the players are sort of on their own, without any coaching supervision and things like that. We got to still make it through that. But hopefully there's enough guys on that team now, juniors and seniors, who have been through these last 3 or 4 off seasons, and they can sort of take a leadership role and say, maybe call a team meeting at the end of spring practice or whatever they have to do. And, I'd like to see the team come together and sort of lay down a set of ground rules rather than the coaches getting them together like a bunch of grown-ups telling a bunch of kids what to do. I'd rather that somebody on the team take charge of that situation, hold maybe a players-only meeting at the end of spring or before school lets out and say, look, guys, this is what's happened the last 2 or 3 off seasons. We're becoming a joke. We're becoming an embarrassment. Everybody behave, stay out of trouble, keep a low profile, don't get Dak Prescott. That joker got knocked the fuck out.
Yeah, that's a good analogy right there. Yeah, don't go to the beach and don't get in fights. Don't get a beer bottle, smashed over your head. And the thing is, I think the players realize that if they can stay out of trouble, they can accomplish, something special this season, because we got a lot of guys coming back, and we granted it wasn't the best season in the world, but we had 10 wins. We had a top-notch pass defense. This team is capable of something special if everybody can keep their heads on straight.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that they don't get in any kind of trouble whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to just about do it. I think we touched on everything. The G-Day game is April 11th. If you guys want to watch it, unfortunately, it's not going to be on TV this year, but you can watch it online. The SEC Network is going to broadcast it online. At least that's the plans right now. I guess that could change in the next week or so.
Oh my God! They're not going to show that on TV.
I don't know what the reason is. I don't know if the game is on the same time that some other game is on that they'd rather show, or I'm not sure. But I checked it right before the show today. And as of right now, it's only available online to watch through SEC Network online. That may change. Who knows? But the game, I believe, is 2 o'clock.
If you can watch it online through the SEC Network, why wouldn't the SEC Network broadcast it?
Well, they might be broadcasting another spring game. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know. And depending on where you live in Georgia, it may be broadcast on one of these regional or one of these, I know Augusta has a local sports channel. It may, depending on where you live, it may be coming on locally in your town or something. But as far as a national broadcast or anything like that, it's only going to be available online on the SEC Network. But the game's April 11th. I believe it's at 2 o'clock. Me and Magnum will talk with Ray in the next week or so, and we'll try to get something lined up so we can do another show maybe the week after the G-Day game, where we talk about how that went, what we saw, what we liked, what we didn't like, and things like that. But thanks for listening, everybody. I know it's been a while since we did the show, but just not a lot to talk about, not enough to talk about to do a show every week in college football during the off season. So we'll try to do a show anytime there's one worth doing. So we'll try to get back with you after the G-Day game. Then we'll probably take a month or two off, and we'll fire it back up when fall camp starts, the end of July, beginning of August, a couple of weeks before the season starts. But again, thanks for listening. Go Dogs. Follow me on YouTube. You can just go to YouTube and search for Uncle Lou. I'll come up. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Crazy Uncle Lou on Twitter. Yep. And until next time, good morning.
Well, I appreciate for everybody that listened from the Facebook group. Get the picture. Thanks for tuning in, and hopefully next time some of y'all will call in. I know we had one caller that kept trying to call in, or something going on with his phone or something. I don't know, but let's try again next time. Like I said, only one thing left to say: Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.